Excellent.
We're on. Okay. For a change, the Shiur is for the sake of Shamayim, sake of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of Hashem, to come closer to Hashem. We accept upon ourselves things that we'll talk about, things that we'll learn, at least to aspire to them, to want to do them, to become closer to those ideas. Recently, a very in-depth survey called the Pew Research Center. The way, excuse my language, but I kind of look at it as the PU, if you know what that means. Not. Because this survey really gets you kind of like ill when you read the results of what's going on in America. It's really mind-boggling. So I took out a few lines here to read, because it's important to know what's going right in front of our eyes. We are seeing really the disappearing of the American Jews in front of our own eyes. We're really seeing it, the result. What's the result of the conservative and deformed and antagonistic movements. We're seeing the results, as in 1 + 1, baby, equals 2. The most dramatic Pew survey finding is an alarming increase in the rate of intermarriage. Among all married Jews who participated in the survey, 44% had a non-Jewish spouse. Okay, this survey that just came out right now. 44% of the people that they surveyed are married to a non-Jew. It gets worse. Of those who married in 2000 or later, the figure dramatically increased to 58%, which means that we call you on the phone and you told us that you've been married for 20 years. Okay, people for 20 years. So these people, we're talking about two levels. The people that they called, some of them were married for many, many years. So the average was 44%. But those people that were married after the year 2013, in the last 13 years, 58%, which means 6 out of every 10 Jews that you meet on the street are intermarried. Avram, it's good that you're sitting here and you have flown out that window.
Sitting here, not in America, Baruch Hashem.
I see that. And that is, folks, you have to put on another seatbelt. That is an increase of 41% from 1970. Within 30 years, from 1970 to 2000, the rate of intermarriage went up from 17% till 58%. This substantial escalation in the rate of intermarriage in just one generation, 30 years, a jump of 41%, represents nothing short of the hemorrhage of the American Jewish community and a level of assimilation unprecedented in Jewish history. Okay, this is from Jerusalem Post. Okay, we're not suspicious of them of loving Judaism, it's right here. Unprecedented. What we see, what's happening right now, right this minute, in our times, in our days, we see the total destruction of the Jewish people. Besides, we see, of course, the Orthodox community.
It's a shame they didn't make a survey for the last 3 or 4 years. 13 years is a long time in this era.
Okay, it goes on. The Pew survey notes that the conservative movement has been in a dramatic decline, while the deformed movement has expanded and absorbed large numbers. How could that be? Who do they take in? they take in intermarried families. Right? We have some unkosher meat, they'll take it. You have some unkosher food, instead of throwing it to the dogs, like the Torah says, Kfar Tapuach, you could just throw it to the Reform movement. Anything that you have that's not kosher, just throw it to that Reform movement, they'll take it. However, the ascent of the Orthodox community has to some extent offset these numbers. Now you have to understand, what we're talking about is they must have gotten, when they do the survey, so there are some people that are religious that they do the survey. So if not for the religious people in the survey, these numbers would be even worse. That's to understand what we're talking about over here. So the influence of the Orthodox community offsets these numbers. Intermarriage is almost non-existent. Fully 98% of the married Orthodox respondents have a Jewish spouse. There's 2% of Orthodox Jews. I have a friend who when I was in 12th grade, when I went to Yeshiva in 12th grade from public school, he was with me. He married in Yeshiva, married a non-Jew. It's like one though.
You know when it was a problem?
Actually, I have two friends that were...
There's a couple of good Jews I saw, even the Abraham, this guy, Rich. Yeah, good. These are Jews who care about Israel. They come, they love Israel, they give to Zionist causes, they're activists. They're Jewish. I go to the States, I happen to go to see them, and I went and met them, and they have Asian wine. Two of these guys, Asian. They're not only going to Asia, I'm not saying it's because any goy, but that's what it's at in Manhattan. You know, Asian wife. They always go to Yeshiva because the guys have a lot of money. I don't, what's so confusing?
Okay, so we said 98% of the Orthodox, married Orthodox, of course their spouses are Jewish. The number of Orthodox Jews is likely to keep on expanding beyond its current 15% of the entire Jewish community because of a very high fertility rate. The Orthodox have 4.1 children, and the regular Jews have 1.9. Now, I mentioned a while ago that according to people that, according to studies that have been done throughout history, there is no community, doesn't matter what the subject is, there's no community that can continue if their birth population is below 2%. And in Europe...
Below 2, not 2%.
Two, excuse me, two.
No, they say usually it's a little more than 2. Usually it's like 2.
It might be 2 point something, but there's no such thing. Throughout history, it's always been proved that if you don't have those 2 point something children...
Right, you're not making up for the 2 parents.
Then you're
losing people.
Right, so then it's just a question of that short time which you're non-existent anymore. So notice that number. Everything goes according to plan here. They're no longer here. The survey, get a load of this, put on another seatbelt. The survey highlights that the cultural identification is replacing religious identification. What does it mean, bichlal, to be a Jew? It's no longer a religious description. It's a cultural thing. If you like bagels and lox, you're Jewish.
Only if it's holy bagel. Only holy bagel.
Holy bagel. Okay. In stark contrast to 10 years ago, when 93% of American Jews identified themselves as Jews by religion, 10 years ago, this is really amazing. The whole thing really is shocking here because we're talking about such a little period of time. We saw 48%, 41% acceleration in 30 years.
Acceleration.
We see. So now, to be Jewish, you define it as something cultural and not by religious means. Today, increasing number of Jews now define themselves as Jews of no religion. Jews of no religion. 2/3, 75% of Jews do not belong to a synagogue. 75% of Jews, amazing thing. You find someone that goes to a synagogue, you want to get his autograph. can you please autograph this for me? You're like, we're going to put you in a museum. You're one of those dinosaurs, Jews. Okay, get a load of this one. This one is a classic one.
Yes, how many kids do you have? I have 1.9. One kid doesn't have a head.
I wish only one kid didn't have a head. You know, there's a lot of 42% maintain that having a good sense of humor is a Jewish identity. If you're funny, that means that you're Jewish, because most funny people, George Burns, Gewalt,
Jerry Lewis,
Phyllis Diller, Jackie Mason, all the funny guys, they were all Jewish.
and the Bush circus.
Groucho Marx, the Marx Brothers, Three Stooges. Eliezer, this is all before your time. Don't feel left out. Okay, 42% say meaning. What does it mean to be Jewish? It means to have a sense of humor. If you have a sense of humor, you're Jewish. I mean, there's something to it, because if you don't have a sense of humor as a Jew, I don't think you can make it really. But that's a different level that I'm talking about. Okay, now this is also interesting. Most describe what does it mean to be Jewish? Liberalism. To be Jewish is to be liberal.
To intermarry.
And a commitment to tikkun olam. Oh yeah. 1 second, guys. Bring them down. Those tikkun olam. Yeah. Tikkun olam people. Yeah. They're going to fix the world here with the no Judaism. Commitment to tikkun olam as the defining characteristics of being Jewish.
What does it mean in English, tikkun olam? What do they say? How do you translate?
Reconstruct.
Put it this way: there's an illness. Who I'm not going to say his name in this holy place. Who has a magazine about the subject, and the magazine is called Tikkun Olam. So you know, the wicked people, they always grabbed 1 or 2 Hebrew or Jewish phrases in order to cover, like a fig leaf, like Adam and Eve, they had to cover their nakedness, so so it could very well be that they use the...
I'm really serious. How would we translate that into
fixing
Reconstruct the world.
reconstruction?
Reconstruction. Many Jews are delighted with this universal Judaism and characterize its adherents as proud Jews who are contributing enormously to American culture. Okay? Baruch Hashem, there's all these people out that are contributing to American culture. The criteria for qualifying as being Jewish has been broadened to the point of absurdity. For example, listen to this one. 34% of the respondents stated that a belief in Jesus as the Messiah was compatible with being Jewish. 34%. Lenny, I'm glad you're still on that chair of yours. We're going to send you to the Knesset where they like sitting down tight. 30% of Jewish families surveyed have Christmas trees in their house. As Hebrew Union College, oh yeah, that Hebrew Union College, the people that created this whole mess, Professor Sarah Benor observed more people than in the past believe that you can be both Christian and Jewish.
And Muslim too, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. All right. Oh, another Shem Rishaim Yerkav. Rabbi Yechiel Ichstein. President of the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, the IFCJ. Now, if you've been in most yeshuvim, that IFCJ, you'll see it all over the place. I was recently in Yad Binyamin, near where the Yeshiva people live, and I saw there a gigantic bomb shelter with the IFCG of this Rasha, calls himself a rabbi.
You need shelter from the bomb shelter itself.
How did it get there to Sha'ar Binyamin? How did it come to Sha'ar
Yeah, they
Binyamin?
run.
Yad Binyamin.
Yad Binyamin.
In almost every settlement, open up your eyes, in almost every settlement you'll see this organization that I just mentioned. They have some kind of monetary assistance to the settlement, or a building, or some kind of club, or something like that.
What do these letters mean again? I-F.
Well, I would say, we're on camera and we're in a show, so I would tell you what I think it really means, but I'll tell you what it says. International Fellowship of Christians and Jews predicts that a new religious category will soon emerge for those who consider themselves Jewish but accept Christian ideology. The person, this Rasha Merusha, Shem Rishayim Yirkav, the person who helped create that the new situation is, when they do a survey, now it will be, are you Orthodox? Are you conservative? Are you deformed? Or are you a Jewish Christian? Okay? The person that's maybe more than anybody else who has a hand in this, this confused state of affairs is both a reflection and a consequence of the appalling meltdown of Jewish values in America.
We should be happy. They didn't make a choice. Stay there, be melted down, or leave. That should be fully conscious. They're going to the point of no return. They've got to make a decision now. How patient can you be with these people in the darkness of America?
Check this out, very interesting. Professor Simon Rawidowicz wrote, Jews are an ever-dying people whose incessant dying means uninterrupted living, rising, standing up, and beginning anew. He who studies Jewish history will readily discover that there was hardly a generation in the diaspora period which did not consider itself a final link in the Jewish chain. Jewish history has always been propelled by a minority that has retained its identity and traditions, and thus furthered Jewish religious, cultural, and political life. Very interesting. Professor here is saying something very true, something that we say always, that the people, who's going to save the Jewish people, it's always been a small group of people that have ignited a certain fire within the Jewish people. That's what he says. The people that every generation, they thought that their generation was going to be the last. But there was always people that were adherent, that stuck fast to the Torah and to the mitzvahs and to sacrificing oneself. And these people are responsible for the continuing flame of Torah and the Jewish people, this small minority group. Today we said they're 15%. In America, it's 15% religious. 15% religious. As many as 71% of non-Orthodox Jews are today marrying non-Jewish spouses. 71%. We should not be under any illusions. Diaspora Jewish life is under greater threat today from loss of identity than from any anti-Semitism. It's a Holocaust, a spiritual Holocaust, which has wiped out the Jewish people. It's pretty difficult to read these statistics, because as people that should have love of Jews, we see in front of our very eyes. We see people that are no longer with us, no longer part of the Jewish people. It's pretty sad.
Further, it's not just in America, we see it here too, with the Beit Cholim, with the Banat Shiur Leumi. All the time you hear stories about girls going out with Arabs here too. I mean, Baruch Hashem, it's not 58%, or even 10%.
70%.
But
Let's go
I read that.
More going there?
Right, no, I read that in the Beit Cholim, it is a significant percentage. It's like 20% of girls who do Shiur Leumi and Beit Cholim end up going out with Arabs, or something like that. It's not like one or two cases here. It's like a large fraction. It's here too.
Good point. In the past week's Parsha, it's very interesting. Give me a break, please. Something that we overlook.
It's also the Or Chaim.
It says, towards the end, here, when Esav gets married at the age of 40, in order to copy his father, it says that Yitzchak and Rivka, they were suffering from the women that Esav was bringing into the house.
That's a midrash. The pasuk says Morat Ruach.
Vayar Esav ki raot banot Knan b'nei Yitzchak aviv. Now, if we notice here, what happened to Rivka? Where did Rivka disappear here in the picture? How come that we see that it bothered Yitzchak and didn't bother, at least Rivka's not in the picture here.
כתוב רבקה. תימורת רוח יצחק לרבקה.
Okay, but we see there, it should have just said in the pasuk, it should have said that there was an ill feeling to Yitzchak, okay, and Rivka, Verivka, and not to Lirivka. So why does the Chazal say, what's the difference between, so we see two things. We see on one hand that Yitzchak was not happy with what's going on. It doesn't say Rivka at all. The time that it does say that Rivka and Yitzchak were upset, it doesn't say what it should, that they were both on the same level of being upset. It doesn't say Yitzchak v'Rivka, it says Lerivka. So why did they change it? If they wanted to tell us that they're both on the same level of disgust, it should have been Verivka, but it's Lerivka. So there's a difference. What's the difference? It's an unbelievable lesson in life. Never forget it. Let us never forget it. Where did Rivka grow up? Rivka grew up in a house that she was accustomed to the smell, we'll call it, of idol worshipping, to Avodah Zarah. She was used to seeing and smelling the prayers and the sacrifices that were going to this foreign worship, this avodah zarah. So when she saw it in her own house, she didn't like it. But she wasn't at the same level as a person that never grew up with that pollution, spiritual pollution in their souls and in their bodies. So when they see that, when Yitzchak sees it, he's going crazy. Because Baruch Hashem, he's not sensitive. He's very sensitive to it, whereas his wife is now, she's been desensitized. This is a tremendous thing in life. There was once a person that came up to Rav Yehuda Cook. He said, listen, I'm from Netanya. I grew up on the beach, near the beach. When I see people walking around with clothes, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bring me to bad places. Is it okay if I continue, now that I'm religious, is it okay if I continue to, go on the beaches where there's people and they're not dressed properly? And so, of course, Rav Yehuda told him that, unfortunately, when a person grows up in a pigsty, they think that it smells fine. They think that there's no unusual smell. Because they've become accustomed to this smell, which stinks. So because, don't continue there. Take a shower. Take your clothes off. Put on some new clothes. Take a shower. So this is a tremendous lesson that we have to always protect ourselves from becoming desensitized to desecration of Hashem's name. Because when you're surrounded by desecration of Hashem's name, when you see it and when you grow up with it and when you become accustomed to it, or when they make you become accustomed to it, this is a very, very bad situation. This is what was happening in Rivka's house, that Yitzchak could not take it. But Rivka was able to take it. She didn't like it. She wasn't happy with it. But still she was able to live on. Yitzchak was not able to continue. That was the big difference.
But he did continue. He had a very good relationship with Esav.
That's a different story. Why?
Sure. The next portion of the Torah says, to the Lisayim, give you the bracha.
That's a different story. That's a whole shiur within itself, which B'ezrat Hashem will get to, is how was the relationship between Yitzchak and Esav. What was it based on? What was Yitzchak? Was Yitzchak fooled? Was he not fooled? That, B'ezrat Hashem, will get into that discussion. But for right now,
I have to just make one point.
Sure.
From my own experience in life, I think only the husband, the man in the family, when a child reaches a certain age, 18, 20, and beyond, the mother loves the child, you see. And she can really make mistakes. Love can blind a person. I'm talking about most women, not about Rivka only. In most cases, the mother wants the child to love her, and she loves her child. He's not a child anymore. He's mature. The father has, I don't like the words objectivity, because he's looking through the eyes of Torah, if he wants to love. And the woman is very flexible. There's an Italian opera, La Donna Mobili. The woman is fickle. I don't like opera, but I think that's true. Dat v'nashim kala. Amru hachamim. The woman's mind is light. It's not that she doesn't have a good mind. You can change a woman's mind more quickly than you can change a man's mind. And so Rivka didn't want to lose Esau. He didn't like the women he was bringing in. But still, why is this question always the mother-in-law problem? The father gets along with the daughter-in-law. But
there's a good, Rav Mordechai Leah has a good answer to that. He has a good answer to that. He says that we see that, how come we don't see a problem with the father's side? Because all the imahot, all the mothers of the Jewish people, they all lived not seeing each other. They were never. Sarah passed away. Rivka was born. Rivka. So it goes one after another. So they have no experience at living together with each other. Whereas Avraham knew Yaakov.
Yeah.
So anyways, Rav Yehuda says that because of the mothers, they don't have any experience in this, but the fathers actually do have experience with living within the same time frame, so relationships are smoother. Anyways, just to nail this point in, that we always have to remember, it's what I like to call the Chushim Ben Dan phenomena, that he was the only person when they came to bury Yaakov Avinu and there was a delay and everyone was willing to accept that delay, only one person wasn't able to accept that was Chushim Ben Dan, because he didn't hear. So he couldn't hear what was going on. He didn't become accustomed to this whole dialect that was going on. Because once you become accustomed to it, it's only a matter of time that you go down to your level keeps on going down. What you're able to take, a person's level goes up, what they're willing to take. So this is an important lesson to remember, the Yitzchak and the Rivka, and that's why when both the Rivka and Yitzchak were praying, whose prayers did Hashem accept? Hashem accepted Yitzchak's prayers. Why? Because Chazal say, Eino domeh tfilat tzaddik ben tzaddik litzaddik ben rasha. Even though there's a tremendous level that a person that comes back to Judaism, we know there's a lot of great lines that are said about such people. They are tremendous people, but when push comes to shove, even so, you still cannot compare the purity, the tamimut, that a person who is a son of a righteous person compared to a son that grew up and he became accustomed and he saw all kinds of evil things, so still he has a place within himself that he can accept evil things. He doesn't immediately go crazy and demonstrate and say, oh, I'm not willing to take this. So this is an important lesson that we have to remember, not to become accustomed to all these bad things that we see and we hear, and not to accept them.
It's a contradiction though. אין צדיקים אומרים כמו שבעלי תשובה.
No, I said.
יש בעיה כאן.
I said.
אולי תפילה.
There's different, I'm saying life is very large scale. In certain aspects, about tshuva is greater than a tzaddik, but it's only in certain aspects. Because as I said, once you've gone, it's like this. If a person was burnt, or a person had a tattoo on himself, that's going to be a mark on you for the rest of your life. Now you could do tshuva, and it's a great thing, but you're still going to have that tattoo on your arm or on your leg or wherever it is. So the thing is that on many levels, a tzaddik is much greater than a person that's new to the Judaism or came from a bad family. On a lot of levels, a person that grew up within a righteous background, they're much, much more spiritually higher than a person that came, and he unfortunately saw a lot of terrible things. Baruch Hashem, he came back, but still it affects a person. You can't run away. You can't run away from really who you are. It took many years that 20, 30 years ago, all the Balei Tshuva, they were told, dump, forget what you did before. If you were a musician, throw it out the window. Go far away from what you did. If you worked in a bank, they would just tell you, leave. Just leave that life. Today they see that it doesn't work, because there's still something within that person that they could do what they did before, but they have to do it on a pure level, on a kosher level. So a person that did music, he become a person that brings up people to come closer to Hashem within their music. Not throw it away. If you're an actor, there's actors that Shuli Ran, He was an actor. So now he makes religious movies to try to influence...
Once I do it, but not to explain, like Breslov does that, but like Uri Zohar, she came through a different kind of tshuva.
Came through Esha Torah.
So he leaves everything. He goes to the old school. Like he doesn't get involved.
Oh, good point.
It's a different.
Okay, it's a whole different thing. So once again, as is always our point, there's many faces. There's many faces to a person, and when the Torah tells us that the Balei Tshuva are greater, then it's true. On certain levels, it is true. On other levels, it's not so. Because everything has a price to it. They say on the street, what goes around comes around. There's no way to...
What does that mean?
That means that you did something in the world, okay, it's going to come around to you again. There's no way to escape it.
Of course, זה הרמב"ם אומר, זה הניסיון. אם יעמוד בזה, זה טוב, כדי שיהיה בעל תשובה, אחרת הוא לא בעל תשובה. אם הוא הולך באיזה חממה, הוא לא בעל תשובה. אני דיברתי עם דוד בלוך, החתן שלי, השבוע, לא מעניין פנס על הציבור אלא מי שיש לו קופה של לשים על צווארו. אני צריך להבין את זה. אף אחד לא ראוי להיות מנהיג של ציבור אלא אם אין לו קופת שרצים, זאת אומרת עבר לא נקי. זה דבר מדהים הדבר הזה.
But that's what, if you really think about it, Avram, we've been talking about that last week, that what's the inyan? The inyan is that in order for a person to really lead the tzibur, you have to be very familiar and get your hands dirty with a lot of things that if you weren't involved in the tzibur, of course you would never even come close to those things. So therefore, only people that have to go into the mud to save other people. The Gemara in Shabbos says that many people like rabbis. How come they like them? Not because they're God-fearing people. No, because that they don't rebuke them to go in Hashem's way. So that's why they like them. There's a lot of people out there that are politically correct. They only say what people like to hear. And they're rabbis, they're rabbanim. They're very nice people, they're very warm people. But they're never going to get themselves in a situation where they're going to say something that has a chance, perhaps, to get them dirty with mud. And in order to be a true leader, you have to have some kind of mud on your back.
Rav Kahana knew that. That's why they were so afraid of him in America.